Hey guys, Justin Critchfield with RCI Realty, RealDealUtah.com, and the Critchfield Group. Today we're going to talk about one of the most important buyer education videos that we can produce for you guys, and that is why having an agent represent you is so important, particularly on the buyer side. As you know, when someone goes to sell their home, they hire a listing agent usually, and that listing agent charges that seller approximately 6% commission. They take 3% for themselves, and then give 3% to whatever buyer's agent brings them a buyer. Now, what a lot of people want to do is they want to say, you know what, even though it's free for me to use that buyer's agent, why don't I just go straight to the listing agent, and instead of him paying my buyer's agent 3%, I'll use him or her, and then they'll give me the 3% to us, and we'll just take that off the purchase price. Now, that's a good theory, but unfortunately our world is imperfect, as you know, and people aren't always at their best, and it does not work out like that a lot of times. Let me show you why. First, we got to understand the responsibilities of a listing agent to the seller. As you can see, they have many important duties that they got to be honest to them, they got to represent them, they got to be fair with them, they can't disclose certain things to the buyer's agent, and they got to get the most money amount possible for the seller. Now on the buyer's agent side, they too also have similar responsibilities, but just for the buyer. Got to be honest, got to be fair, got to represent them, and they got to get the lowest price possible for the buyer. Now, what happens sometimes in Utah, we call this a limited agent, is when the same agent represents both parties, the buyer and the seller. As you can see, it is really hard for it to line up to where they can be perfectly honest with you and the seller. The question is, how can they get the seller really, truly the most money amount possible, but get the buyer the home for the cheapest amount possible? In several states, this thing is actually illegal, and they won't even let agents do it because there's just been too much trouble with it. Utah, it is legal, but there are a lot of problems with it. Can you see why sometimes agents maybe might represent one party and maybe have a seller's interest in mind better than perhaps a buyer's interest? And when that happens, problems occur. Let's hear some horror stories why this happened with price and other issues.
Yeah, really interesting story, guys. I had some friends that decided that they wanted to try to use an agent without representation with a builder in Utah County on a townhome. And the story got relayed very clearly in that they literally got really excited about a price that was set on a townhome. And when they went to close on it, they actually had documentation that showed a bunch of different fees and a purchase price that was entirely different than what was first represented. And it was actually $10,000 higher, which is a really big deal, especially in that $129 price range.
They wrote up a contract, but what happened is the listing agent looked out for the seller's benefit, and the dates that he'd put in the contract were not a sufficient amount enough time to give them the time to do their inspections and everything else. So two things happened. One, when they had a problem that they thought they needed to get resolved, they went to go talk to the seller about it, and guess what? Their dates had already expired because the listing agent had made it too short. The second thing that happened when they got to closing is they found out that they had gotten 1% back, which was maybe a good thing. They thought they were going to get 3%. They really had no recourse to try to get the 3%, but then when they had some comparables done some years later, they realized they had overpaid on that home by some 15 or 20 grand.
As you can see, price is a big deal. People are motivated by money, especially agents. When you consider that the average agent in Utah does 3 or 4 deals a year, and you come to them, it's their listing, and you call on them and say, hey, representative both, that agent's, oh, they're loving it. They're thinking, oh my goodness, I could do half my deals in this one transaction. And so when it's half their deals and they got to pay their mortgage and their spouse is nagging at them to make money, they end up doing some crazy things. And I'll just tell you 2 of my horror stories. Here's number 1. Yep. The buyer goes to get an inspection, and let me tell you, people always tell me, oh, I don't need an agent, and I know to get an inspection. They think just because they get an inspection, they're okay, they don't need any more representation. But let me tell you what happened on this incident. They go to get a home inspection. Home inspector finds a big, huge crack in the outside foundation. We're not talking cracks in the basement, in the outside. It's huge, really wide. The buyer's agent, or excuse me, the agent that's representing the seller and the buyer looks at the report, and because they want to make the deal work, they said, oh, not a big deal. And they said, but are you sure? The inspector said, he recommended a structural engineer. They said, oh, not a big deal, just go with it. They went with it. Come to find out later in life, yep, that's a big deal. Prevented them from selling the home for the price they thought they could. Ended up having to spend tons of money to get that fixed. Another horror story. Same thing. Inspection happened, getting represented by both parties. And guess what this agent told the buyer? They told them that he would go to the seller and have them do a home warranty, and the home warranty would cover everything. Guess what? It didn't happen. All the repairs that needed to be done were not covered by the home warranty. And again, this buyer was out thousands and thousands of dollars. So the two main reasons why you guys need a listing agent or a buyer's agent on your side is, one, we are going to get you the best deal possible. If you think about it, we're going to protect you on price, and we're going to negotiate like crazy. We're pit bulls when it comes to negotiating. People don't realize that the Critchfield Group, on average, we're getting 7% off the asking price for our buyers. So what's 1 or 2% off of the commissions, or 3% even if you're lucky, if that's going to happen, when you can get 7% off the listing price. The other thing you have to realize too is we're going to protect you. We're going to give you proper advice. We're going to put in protection clauses and back out dates in the contract so that just in case things don't work out, you're going to be protected and you're not going to lose any earnest money and you're not going to get tied up in any lawsuits. Understand this, guys. Important to use your own buyer's agent, but let me just tell you one more thing. It's important you use a great agent, a fantastic agent. Because if you just use a subpar agent, guys, you're leaving thousands and thousands of dollars on the table. Here's our philosophy at the Critchfield Group that we think you'll really appreciate, and this is how we view our business. And I tell you this very sincerely because the customer is the most important person to us. That's why we've developed these tools and these great websites for you guys. We want to educate you. We want to help you. We want to give you an amazing buying experience. Because here's why. If we can protect you and negotiate for you and help you and get you the best house possible at the lowest price possible, you're going to love us. You're going to refer us out to all your friends and family and coworkers, and that's going to create more business for us throughout the lifetime versus the one agent that's caught up in that deal that needs money that second for that mortgage payment to pay his or her bills is going to do whatever they can to sell you the home. Happens all too often, especially when they represent both sides. They're so worried about making that commission check, and they just have to make that deal work so that they can make ends meet, that they're willing to say and tell and do anything to make the deal work. And in our economy, that's a scary thing because it's happening a lot. So be smart, hire a great agent, hire us, anyone from our team. We would love to help you guys. Call us or email us today. We'll help you find an amazing house. Thanks, guys. Have a great one.